Welcome to the CSBP Fertilisers Grow Better Podcast, sharing knowledge with growers on leading crop nutrition, sustainable agriculture and other issues impacting the agricultural industry.
G'day everyone and welcome to another episode of the CSBP Grow Better Podcast. My name's Grey Johnston and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Manraj Chatha, Supply Chain Coordinator at CSBP. G'day Manraj.
Morning, Grey. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Now Manraj, you work in our supply chain procurement team at CSBP, but we've got you on the show today to rake over the coals of the recent World Test Championship final, keen to dissect every ball, every play, every selection decision. Where did India go wrong?
Not being aggressive in the field.
That was it?
That was it.
Should have picked Ashwin?
I think so, yes. In hindsight is a beautiful thing.
Hindsight is a beautiful thing. As we always say in the fertiliser business as well as cricket, tell us about yourself, your journey to get to CSBP and what your role entails.
Well, I was, if we start from the start, I was born in India. Then once I graduated, I moved to New Zealand for some greener pastures. I worked there with Fonterra, which is the New Zealand dairy board. Then I was young, had a bit of money, and I said, okay, why don't I go on a working holiday? So I left New Zealand, went to Germany on a working holiday. By the time I came back to New Zealand in 2007, the WA mining boom was all over the shop. And every barbecue we went to, there were half the people going to WA to strike the gold. So I packed up my bag, came to Australia early 2008, and as luck would have it, the GFC followed soon after. So rather than big companies needing people, they were like redundancy news every morning. And then I worked my way through. I worked for a few other companies like Blue Scope Steel, MSC, before I landed at CSBP. Mm-hmm. Started in CSBP in 2011, and I started in the ammonium nitrate logistics business. So I was looking after the road transport and stock management for Rio Tinto for ammonium nitrate and explosive side. And then around 2017-18, an opportunity came up, this one which I'm doing at the moment. The gentleman who's been looking after this job, he was retiring, and I applied for the position. Really think I was lucky to get this one because I didn't have any experience in bulk shipping, and I worked my way into this one. And like they say, the rest is history.
It's brilliant. Now, people who listen to this podcast are always really keen to hear about the various things that happen in CSBP's supply chain and in our fertiliser manufacture. What specifically, is the role you play as part of the CSBP machine that makes it happen every year?
My role is mainly to move so basically the way fertiliser procurement works, there's mainly two kinds of fertiliser. One is mined, one is chemical. Now, mined fertilizers mainly fall under your phosphates and potash, and that is, you can only get that fertilizer if you've got it in the ground. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, Australia doesn't have huge resources or huge mines for potash and phosphate, so most of that gets imported, and we get that from US and Canada. Then you have the other fertilizer, which is chemical, which is mainly nitrogen-based, and those fertilizers relate to gas, natural gas, and we've got supply of natural gas, but not in huge abundance as compared to the Middle East. So mainly most of our fertilizer procurement happens from overseas. And this gives us a good edge because being the biggest importer in WA, we can actually get some competitive tension across different suppliers, and we can choose the suppliers we want to deal with, like-minded companies who have good ethics, like look after modern day slavery and ethical sourcing. So once it binds with all of that, then we introduce some competitive tension to get the best pricing for us as well as the WA farmers. Now, my role in the whole jigsaw is we find the place where the fertilizer is available, the quality, the dates, the pricing. Once all of that is done, then it's my job to pick it up from that part of the world and bring it to our warehouses along the coast of WA.
Okay. And so that involves, I guess, managing shipping?
Yes, so that involves managing shipping, quarantine, customs, and we get affected by global events as well. So any global event has the potential to affect our program. As a very small example, I think what we did was we had a UN vessel last season coming into WA. We desperately needed that Flexi-N to come in. and there was a vessel which blocked the Suez Canal for 10 days, and our vessel was in the lineup as well. So we're just sitting there waiting, and there's absolutely nothing you can do. So you just got to wait for that event to unfold. So there's these global events which happen all the time. The Russia-Ukraine war created a big hassle for us, a big roadblock, because we had a UN supplier who was in Russia. Overnight, we could not buy from that supplier anymore. So we had to go out in a very tight market. Post-COVID, there's not enough fertilizer available in the world market. The market was really short, and overnight we had to change our procurement strategy. So we go through those things. Then the other challenge we've got is with Australian quarantine. So quarantine, and to make sure that we safeguard the Australian flora and fauna, we follow these guidelines very strictly. One of the things is we have to maintain what are known as AFF1 supply chains, which means we can only buy fertilizer from companies which have been audited and which are on the register for Department of Ag. So basically that reduces the amount of suppliers which are available in the market. So that creates a short list. The other challenge we've got is to maintain the guidelines or the regulations. We can only charter ships which haven't carried any grain for the last 2 years.
Okay.
So what that means is we are looking for a ship in the US Gulf, but the ship should not have done any US grains or any grains except Aussie grains for the last 2 years.
Fascinating.
So that creates a challenge in itself, and especially like if you see the US market is so high in soybeans and other grains, it is like finding hen's teeth.
So you talked a bit about the program that we have every year. You referred to the CSBP program. What's the size of that program that you're managing every year? Say how many ships or of how many tons? Give our listeners a sense.
We almost import close to 1.2 million metric tons. That includes dry bulk and liquids. And in that 1.2 million tons, we do that across about 25 to 30 ships. And out of those ships, Flexion is the only one which comes Kunana only. The other ships can actually go to various ports across the coast. So right from Geraldton to Esperance. We like this 1.2 tons includes importing of raw materials as well. So we are the only player in WA who manufactures fertilizer in WA. So we import raw materials. We have a super manufacturing plant. We have a grand plant, and we can manufacture Flexion as well. So we have all the resources to do that. That again gives us an advantage where we can make customized blends for WA's soil, WA's weather and requirements, as compared to buying it off the shelf, one size fits all from global markets. So we can actually make tailor-made fertilizer to suit the farmer's needs.
So bringing in those 30-odd ships a year, you talked about vessels being scarce as hen's teeth. Like how many vessels would there be out in the market that fit all those different stringent requirements?
Sometimes we have a choice of 1, 2 or 3 vessels maximum. Sometimes what is happening right now in the peak nitrogen season is everybody buys their nitrogen from the Persian Gulf, which is the Middle East as we call it. And right now all the players on the East Coast and the West Coast would be, maybe all of them are bidding for that one ship, which is AFF1 in the Middle East at the moment. Because the requirement for the East Coast and the West Coast pretty much falls in this season when it's raining, and everyone is just bidding for the same ship.
So how do you then add your Manraj magic to make sure that CSBP and its growers get access to that vessel?
So sometimes what we do is we might have to up the bid a little bit to get that vessel. Sometimes what we do is we ballast a vessel from a faraway port. Like a ballast leg is when the vessel travels empty to go to the load port. So sometimes when we foresee this issue, we might even ballast a vessel all the way from Singapore, which takes about 8 to 10 days. It's an extra expense to us. It's an extra cost. But we're able to maintain the program, and we are able to maintain the reliability for the farmers.
A pretty good, I think, sense you've given us there of all the different machinations that happen to make the export program or the import program happen every year, export from the various ports that we load from. What in particular is happening this season, and what are the sort of things you've started to see?
Look, this season the way we see it, because we had a bumper harvest last year, I think it broke all record 26.5 million. What that did was the harvest lasted longer than normal. Normally the harvest finishes around Christmas. This year it's extended into January, so the whole seeding program and everything got delayed slightly. Then we had a very dry May, which put a lot of pressure on our stock profile, on our storage profile. So up until May, we were really concerned about all those nitrogen vessels coming in and not having space in the warehouse. And in June, everything's changed. I think we've had the wettest start to the June in a very long time. So the fertilizer is moving now. So that front ending of the procurement for nitrogen, basically Flexi and urea, that's coming in really handy now. We are in a very good position across all 5 ports in WA to meet the farmers' requirements.
And we've still got vessels on the water?
Still got vessels on the water. It's all happening.
And what does that mean for you day to day?
Well, it means 24/7 work. The phone can ring anytime across the zones, overseas, within the coast, Kunana, Esperance. So yeah, everything's running hot at the moment. And I think it's going to be like this till the end of July.
And you mentioned Esperance. I think you've had one particular issue you had to manage with a trip down to Esperance this year.
There was a vessel which came into the port of Kunana, into KBJ, which apparently had drugs on it. Now, that vessel was under the direct control of Border Force and Federal Police. So it came to Kunana berth and it just sat there for 15 days. We had a urea vessel waiting in the wings, and once we anticipated that this drug vessel is not going anywhere, we actually made a quick decision to send the vessel to Esperance. Now, when we do these changes, you have to talk to about 20-25 different stakeholders, which is the ship owner, customs, quarantine, labor for stevedores, trucks, our warehouse, and everything. So I think we made this decision on Thursday. Between Thursday and Friday, I went through every single thing. We ticked all the boxes, and the vessel sailed. It had to berth at Esperance on a Sunday. And on a Saturday, I realized there's a thing called a bill of lading. You actually have to physically present that paper, that bill of lading, to the master before the master will let you take the cargo off.
The master's the captain of the ship.
The master is the captain of the ship,
yeah.
And he holds the position of power on the vessel. So on a Saturday morning, 9 o'clock, I wake up and I thought, oh my God, the bill of lading is still sitting at Kunana. And I tried all the options. We've got these trucks which go to Esperance on a daily basis, interworks transfers with different fertilizers. Nothing was happening. There was a flight to Esperance at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So I booked my flight. I had to steal a room from one of the stevedores. So once you put it all together, about 12 o'clock, made all the arrangements, flew into Esperance, gave the bill. We successfully started the discharge on a Sunday morning. Yes, and then on Sunday afternoon I came back, and when I landed at Perth Airport, there was the ankles were wet. It was raining so bad, and I'm really glad that Fokker 100 landed in that weather.
And so, I mean, at the end of the day, a great outcome for growers in Esperance.
Yes, a great outcome, because otherwise, if we did not do this, there was a potential for us to run out of urea in Esperance, and Esperance is running really hot at the moment. So that was a great outcome in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, really good. And look, a really nice case study of some of the work that needs to happen behind the scenes to ensure that kind of reliable supply to the market. When you step back, then what is it that when you reflect on your role and how all the pieces come together at CSBP, what is it that is the secret to success?
There's no one secret to success. Every situation is different. You just got to be agile. You need to keep thinking. You know, the thoughts you get at 2 o'clock in the morning, you got to write down those thoughts and go to the office and see whether it's the correct decision or not. And the one challenge we have in shipping is we need to make very time-bound decisions. Like sometimes a situation could arise, my phone rings now, and I have to make a decision by 12:30 today. Mm-hmm. And you have to make a decision on the day, basis the information on hand on that day. So if you have a royal commission on that decision 15 days later, it could prove to be wrong. But yeah, we just got to look forward with what we think is right and move ahead with it. Sometimes it's the right decision, sometimes it's the wrong decision. But yeah, we've got very critical timelines when it comes to making decisions. And Unfortunately, we don't have much information on hand when we make those decisions. So sometimes you have to go with the gut feel. And the comedy of errors is, especially in this season, in the nitrogen season, we need the rain to sell the fertilizer, but we don't need the rain when we're unloading the fertilizer. So dry bulk, whenever it's raining, you need a day like today when the sun's shining, but to spread it on the fields, you need a lot of rain. So it's a bit of an anticlimax with the sales team.
Yeah. Manraj, thanks so much for the insight you've been able to share us today on your role as a supply chain coordinator and some of the stories around how you wangle the shipping campaign to fit into the constraints of timing and infrastructure and season. Hopefully is illustrative for our listenership and kind of demonstrates the lengths to which the team at CSBP goes to make it all happen. And of course, I've been Grey Johnston. Thank you, Manraj Chatha.
Thanks, Grey. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all out there. Subscribe at CSBP Fertilisers to any of our social channels and stay in touch with the CSBP Grow Better podcast. Thanks all. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning into another episode of the CSBP Grow Better podcast. For more information about CSBP, please visit csbp-fertilisers.com.au or connect with us on social media at CSBP Fertilisers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn.